Now we need to put some spines on here, some cactus thorns. Welcome everybody. Today on Art 101 we are going to look at a type of plant. The plant is called a cactus, and it's an interesting one. There's lots of different kinds. Let's find out how to draw them. Now, today we're going to focus a little bit on something called mixed media. Now what's that? Mixed media is when you combine different types of artistic materials. So, you know, we can do a lot of different things. We can use our pencil to draw with. We can use a marker to draw with. We're going to get two different types of looks when we use these materials. We could also use paint. We could use oil pastel. We could use color pencils. And so when you mix multiple items together, we call that a mixed media art project or mixed media art. And so today that's what we're going to do. We're going to use our pencil, our marker, and we're going to use some color pencils. Layout. And we're going to go ahead and throw down some shapes. So for our barrel cactus, it's going to be a circular. Make sure you see this. I'm using a pencil first just to kind of block in my shapes for the cactus. And we're going to use a technique called overlapping as well, and that's going to give us some perspective. So if we have our barrel cactus here, and then behind that we're going to have our prickly pear, and it's going to be poking behind here. Okay, I don't know if you can see that. And this prickly pear cactus just they kind of grow out in these flat pads. These flat pads kind of grow from each other. This almost looks like the same cactus, but you'll get to see, we'll add more detail. And notice how I'm drawing these. See how this line is curved? I'm contouring the line. And then it goes on this side, it curves this way, and it mimics the shape of the outside of the cactus. You see how this line mimics this shape, and then the center kind of goes straighter, and then it's when it gets to this side, it starts mimicking the outside contour of this line. Okay, so we'll put more detail. We're not going to do a ton of detail at the moment. And then let's do another. This is going to be our saguaro cactus. It's going to go right behind here. I'm going to have it tilted a little bit just to make it interesting. And this is not going to be horribly tall because I want it to fit with the page. I'm having this cactus go all the way out to the front of the page here, to the top of the page, and then the bottom here. I'm not going to go all the way to the bottom. I'm going to show you in a minute what I'm going to do with our border. And notice how I'm just kind of curving this almost like if it was a balloon attached there. And then usually these saguaro cactuses have lines that go straight down, and those are the ridges where the spines or thorns grow from. And we would do the same thing on these as these grow out, but they're going to be curved. There's going to be two there, and there'll be two over here. Okay, and then I'm going to kind of curve this where it's attached to the. Okay, so we got that. So we got some. This is kind of interesting. We could add some more. What would we, if we wanted to balance it out? Looks like there might be a spot here. Let's do another, like kind of a smaller barrel that might be sneaking behind this one. So this is where I'm talking overlapping. Do you see how this cactus is behind this cactus? And when you overlap them, it gives it depth. You start thinking, oh, this one's in front of this one, and then you start thinking that it's not all flat. There's some dimension there, and so we can go ahead and so we got something that looks like that. Now I'm going to take a marker. know what else you could, I just thought about this. This is actually kind of the same technique you would use if you were going to create a pumpkin. I know pumpkins are pretty popular around the fall and harvest time. So you could, if you were wanting to do that, I'm just going to kind of simulate some of the ground there and make it a little more irregular. Okay, so there's our kind of general outline. Now we need to put some spines on here, some cactus thorns. And so we'll start on the outside and we'll just kind of, just real easy, just a couple little, usually do 2 just to kind of give the sensation or the representation of some sharp thorns. So now, the first step of this is we're going to actually do some shading, and we're going to add some pencil, just a regular pencil, and you can see how it says HB, and then you'll see the number 2. Okay, so a lot of times we'll call a number 2 pencil, and they'll be yellow a lot of times. Different companies make them. But there are other kinds of pencils, and if you look at this scale, I'm going to show you this, just for your, if you start getting interested in art, you might be fascinated by this, because later on you might go to an art store or a stationery store like that might sell paper and stuff, and they have different types of pencils, and these pencils can be used for artwork. And so if you look at this scale, these are a number. You can look at all these different kinds of pencils. 9H, they start at H, 9H, 8H, all the way up. In the middle, around the middle, you'll see HB. That's what this number 2 pencil is, HB. But then there's pencils that are even darker. You can see how the lead gets darker, see how it gets blacker and more black, until you get to what's called a 9B. 9B is a very dark pencil. And now what I have here, just to show you, you don't need this for this project, but some of you might be interested in this, is this is called a woodless pencil. It's a pencil that has no wood. Basically, it's one solid chunk of graphite. Now sometimes we call it lead. They don't make it out of lead anymore. This is made out of graphite. Lead can be poisonous to people, so they stopped doing that. But graphite is what the tip of your pencil is made of. Okay, but this pencil is all made of that material. There's no wood at all. In fact, it just has like a plastic coating around the outside so you don't get your hands dirty. And you can sharpen this like a regular pencil, but it's all graphite. And so this one happens to be 9B. Come on, see the 9B? And that's pretty much the darkest you can get. And so it takes very little effort to, when you use a 9B pencil, to make it dark. Hardly any at all. And it can smear really easily. And if you use something like a Q-tip, you can see this. See how that smears? And you can blend, you can add more. I'm barely even pushing down on this pencil and it just gets really dark. And you got to be careful because you can also get your fingers dirty with it too, but it's just kind of an interesting art material or art medium that you might be interested in as you get older. Now you can see with the HB, it's a little harder. It's not quite as, it takes, if you want something darker, you've got to push a lot harder to get it darker. But You can blend with a, doesn't blend quite as well with a Q-tip. You could also use something called a tortillon, not a tortilla, but a tortillon. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but it is an art blending material. And this one I made, I made this one out of paper, but you could buy them in the stores. But if you go online, there's plenty of websites that teach you how to make these. And this has a finer point, and so I can get in and I can start shading and blending into tight corners. So anyways, just want to introduce you to that later on. Not something you need to worry about for this project. So let's go ahead and use our number 2 pencil, and let's go ahead and just kind of blend a little bit. And we've practiced this a little bit in the past, but what I'm doing is I'm going to make the areas near the lines darker, and as the spaces get closer to the center, I'm going to lessen the pressure on my pencil, and I'm going to try to make it as smooth as possible. And I'm going to blend each section. I'm not worrying so much about the little thorns. I'm just kind of drawing right over those. And you can see as I get to the section of this, I'm lessening the pressure. I want to try to not have any scribble lines. I want it to blend as much as possible. And the areas that are in the shadows, in the little nooks and crannies of this cactus, are going to be darker. So I'm going to add a little more pressure there. Okay, do you see how that's starting to look a little more three-dimensional? That's called adding value to your drawing. I'm adding value, or sometimes people call it I'm shading, and that's giving depth. That's giving it depth. When we overlap these cactuses, that gave it depth. And when we add value to the drawing, it also gives another layer of depth to make it look a little more three-dimensional. So now let's look at this real quick. Do you see how this saguaro cactus is behind this barrel cactus? So there's going to be some shadow, a little more shadow that's going to be cast. And so we're going to make it a little bit darker in this area. And then as it gets farther away, we're going to lighten it up a little bit. When I mean lighten it up, I mean lessening the pressure, not pressing down as hard, and that's going to give you a lighter value. I can go ahead and if an area got too dark, I can take my eraser and use my eraser as a drawing tool and just in the center of the area that I want to lighten it up, I can just erase a little bit, and that can lighten up some of that area and give it some highlights on areas that are a little too dark, and I want to add a little more some highlights to the area to make it look a little more three-dimensional. I can add that to the center of each one of these little contained areas of the cactus. You can see how that works there. So we have one more cactus to do. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about color. And let's bring back our photo. And I like this photo here because of the sunset in the background. Really amazing colors here. If you look at this is kind of interesting. So if you look at this, you can see how we have yellow, and then it kind of turns into orange, and then or yellow orange, and then maybe even a little bit of red orange, maybe some red, and then it kind of starts going into violet. Now look at these colors. See, this is our color wheel, right? Very important to have a color wheel. And you, from past videos, you might remember me talking about analogous colors. Analogous colors are colors that are right next to each other on the color wheel, and they look really nice together. But you can see how this yellow, orange, orange, red. See how there's an order to it? Look at this sunset, all the way to red, violet. You see that same pattern or layout of colors going from yellow to the violets up here at the top. Really interesting. Makes a really nice background for this photograph. But notice you can go the other way too. You could start with the yellows, or actually start with the red, orange, and then come down this way to even the green spectrum of side. And that's what I think I'm going to do with ours for the background. So before we start using colors, we're going to put in a little bit of a border. Now I'm going to about an inch. I'm making this about an inch from the side. If you wanted to use a ruler, you could. But I'm just freehanding, and just basically, it's not going to be perfect. But I'm going to go behind the cactus, and I'm basically going to draw a border about an inch from the edge. It's not a perfect border, but you'll see almost like a rectangle in the background. So you can see how it goes here. Notice I'm not drawing on top of the cactus. I'm going behind. So whenever my line hits the edge of a cactus, I'm going to skip and then go up here, and then I'm going to make the corner of the rectangle, skip. Wherever your cactus is going to be a little different than mine. Yours might be a different type of cactus, and I encourage you to draw whatever interests you. But you can see this border behind here. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to get our color pencils out, and we're going to pick out some of these colors that we talked about on the color wheel. So we have red, orange. We have orange. I don't have yellow orange, so we're going to have to fudge there, and we're just going to put that in the middle. I have yellow, and then I have this light green, and even a dark green. Can you see that? Get that in the frame there. So you can see these analogous colors. The only one we're missing is yellow-orange, but we can combine these two and make that. So you can see there are colors, and that's what's going to make up our background. So let's go ahead and start with our red-orange, and we're going to make the brightest red closest to the cactus. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and start our first layer, and it's going to be right next to the cactus. As a final area, we're going to add this little green. This green is going to be kind of on the border of the rectangle, and I'm going to add that. And I kind of like the green because then it gives you a little bit of a, most cactus or cacti, plural of cactus is cacti. I like that because most of them are green, and so this kind of ties it in with the original color of what you would think a cactus would be. I would encourage you to experiment, use different colors, try different things. Use your color wheel, print out a color wheel and see what other colors could you use. Could you use it like a blue-green, blue-violet, and go that kind of a route? I bet that would be a beautiful background. There's all kinds you could try. Experiment with color theory, what would look neat together. Experiment with different materials. If you have watercolor paint, maybe you try doing one of these background or the foreground in watercolor and see how that looks. Maybe you have markers. You want to try to use markers. Oil pastel, great thing to try. I could see doing this background with oil pastel as well. So lots of different ideas. Figure out what materials you have around the house. See what you could use, and then really concentrate on creating a mixed media drawing or painting, and see what you come up with, and send me an email. I'd love to see them. Always love to get your emails and love to see the artwork that you're producing. You guys are doing a great job, and I hope you enjoyed the lesson, and don't forget to draw every day, and we will see you next time.